Hello everybody, my name is Billy and welcome back to my shop. I am really excited about today's project. Today, I want to make a custom spider themed picture frame. Okay, so check this out. I got this sweet picture of Peter Parker Spider-Man. This thing's awesome. What's not so awesome is this frame. Look, it's terrible. Look at this thing. They got staples in it. They held it together with tape. I have no words. So we can do better. What I'm thinking is walnut. So we got some walnut boards here. Make a cool walnut picture frame, and then some sort of like spider themed elements on the frame. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. But first step is I need to mill all of this lumber up so I can create my pieces to make my frame. The pieces are milled up, so now it's time to cut the miters for our frame. And I'm going to do this in a completely different way than what I usually do. Typically, I will use this sweet picture frame making jig here. And so what's so great about this is I can cut the rabbets for my frame and then register it against my ruler, set my stop block, and batch out pieces. But this is nowhere near big enough for the frame we're making. So we're gonna go old school today. I've got the miter gauge in the saw set at a 45-degree angle to my blade and a sacrificial fence. So we will cut the miters on each of our pieces, and then on the back of those, we'll cut a 1/4-inch rabbet in the back to hold the picture. All the parts are cut for the frame, and I did a dry assembly here with my band clamp, and man, look at those miters. Those things are super tight. So really happy with this. Now it's time for the glue up, and I am going to be using a new glue. I'm going to use Type-On Quick and Thick. Odd choice for a name, but I was told that this is great for doing ingrain to ingrain glue ups, which that's what this is. I have not used this on a project, so I did a test. I cut just a quick miter, glued it together here. I actually didn't use any clamps, any tape on this at all. I stuck it together and then set it down, and that was it. And so we should be good. I'm gonna glue this thing together, and then we'll throw some splines in the corners too. due day in the shop and I let the glue dry on the frame. So this thing's good to go, but we can make it look a little cooler. So how about we put some splines in all of the corners? And I'm gonna use some aluminum instead of wood. I figured that would give it a really cool look. So I'm gonna use my spline making jig to do this. And if you want to see more about the jig and my whole frame making process, then you can click the link up here. I got a whole video on that. I want a really cool engraving on the surface of the frame that is like spider themed, because this is a Spider-Man picture frame. And I've got the aluminum splines in it, so what I'm thinking is once I engrave the frame, I can fill that engraving with aluminum. So then it's gonna coordinate with the splines, and also it's just gonna look really awesome with the picture itself. So I'm gonna jump on the computer, go into Inkscape, and use that software to come up with some sort of design for the engraving. I got my graphic all done and I think it looks really cool. It's got a couple of different spider webs and then a spider on it. So I was thinking about a couple of different ways that I can do this engraving. I can try it by hand. I can use like a Dremel or a handheld router to carve it out, but I'm thinking the best way to really do this is a CNC. I don't have a CNC, but my buddy Jacob does. So I'm going to shoot him this file so that he can start messing with it, go over to his house, and then he can help me to engrave the frame. Next step on the frame is we got to put some sort of carving in it. So this is what I'm thinking. We're going to do a spider web carving that goes with the Spider-Man picture. Sounds perfect in my head. So this is, I don't have the technology to do that, but my buddy here does, and he's gonna let us use his CNC to carve all of this thing out. I'm really excited about this because I knew nothing about CNC, so this is a huge learning experience for me, and I'm excited to see it, and let's get it going. I'm back in my shop now, and this turned out even better than I expected. It's absolutely phenomenal, and I would be remiss if I didn't say you need to check out my buddy's page, Dispro Designs. I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can see his Instagram and his Facebook. Dude just knocks it out of the park with woodworking, so definitely check him out. Our next step is I need to fill in this engraving. And my original concept was that I was going to not do aluminum, but actually do an inlay. So I used my laser to cut out a practice web and then did some inlay of maple. And It looks pretty good, but it just wasn't quite what I wanted. I had a lot of people on Instagram tell me to try to use solder. So I got out my electrical stuff and actually stole this container from my wife's closet, so don't tell her. But I keep my electrical stuff in here, and I grabbed some solder. So I melted solder and tried to put that into a sample. But what I found is that the solder doesn't want to get inside the engraving. It's just too small of an area, instead it clumps up. So that was out. So then my next option was cold casting. So I grabbed some aluminum powder and cold casted a sample, and I just loved how this turned out. It looked really, really nice. I got a lot of really good input from people on Instagram, so I really appreciate the cold casting tips that I got from all of you. Thank you very much. Next step is I'm going to do layers of CA glue with aluminum powder and build it up until I get flush with the surface, and then I'll sand away any of the excess. I finished all the inlay work and then sanded the entire frame down to 220 grit. And I have to say, I'm really thrilled with how it turned out. I'm not a cold casting expert. I've never done this before, so you're watching me learn the process. And there's a couple things that I definitely need to improve on with my technique. There's a couple little pinholes here and there. There were a couple spots I had to go back over with glue and powder to refill those. But in general, I can't really be too hard on myself. It turned out really cool. It's amazing what you can do with some powder and some glue. So at this point, I need to put a couple coats of finish on it. I'm gonna go with General Finishes Armor Seal, and then I'll be able to wrap this thing up. This thing turned out fantastic, and I'm really glad that the excitement that I had for this project paid off with the end result. If you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can also follow me on my blog, which is on my website. There's links in the description below. You can also follow me on Instagram at Genealogist Woodworker. Until we meet again, get in your shop and build something awesome.